Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Gwent, and it looks like we're back to the weekly seasonal event changes because Banished seasonal event is over, and we are into the Double Down seasonal event, which means that whenever we play a card from our hand, we will play a card with the same provision cost from our deck. That means we have the opportunity to play a bunch of cards in this seasonal event. And for our first deck, we're going to check out a Nilfgaard deck that uses a ton of spies, which has a nifty little trick to the way that one works, so let's check it out. Okay, so we're going to play a double-cross Nilfgaard deck so that we can play a card from our opponent's hand. And the thing with this deck is that we are going to play as many Assimilate and Spy units as possible, because what happens in this seasonal event is when you play a Spying unit, we will actually play that second card from our opponent's deck rather than our own deck, so we can mess with their deck big time and also have more opportunity to trigger Assimilate. So I'll flip the deck here to show you what we have. Leading off with Oneiromancy for card selection. Syanna for some crazy deploy synergies. Now, this is a little bit optimistic, but I'm thinking we can get a little bit ambitious with it, so we'll give it a shot. Dandelion Poet to play additional cards from our hand. Royal Decree for more card selection. Joachim, huge spy to target. Braathens to create more spies. Coup de Grace to target those spies and create additional copies of them. Assimilate. Assimilate. Extra Assimilate. Spies, spies, assimilate, 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 spies, assimilate, assimilate, spies, and spies. So there's a look at the deck, and it's very simple. Like I said, basically just play assimilate cards, and then play our spies to steal cards from our opponent's deck, and trigger the assimilate. So let's give it a shot. Okay, going against Nilfgaard here, and they'll go first. Okay, and we have Oneiromancy, that's great. Our double assimilate, that's also great. Joachim de Wett, nice. Both Dandelions, we actually may want to get rid of one of them so that when we play the first one, we'll get the second one out of our deck. So I think we dump you, get second Oneiromancy. I will certainly take that. Then, other than that, I don't love the Mage Infiltrator, probably our weakest of our spies. Artorius Vigo is good though. We'll take that. Okay. They're going to spawn and play another card. And, ooh, they're going to get Braathens out of their deck as well. That's a dangerous card. Except if they wanted to go with the Duchess's Informant, then of course, there's no card for them to create a copy of, so they need to go with the Emissary. Okay. So, I think we start out with our double assimilate here, because this is our best engine. And, okay, we get the Cupbearer out of our deck. We would have probably preferred to get the other double assimilate, but we can live with this, and then probably go for the poison on Braathens. And now that we have some assimilate out there, then we can start to get a little bit more clever with some of our elaborate cards, like Artorius Vigo, maybe in Joachim. Oh, did you have both of these guys in your starting hand? Interesting. And you're going to get your other Braathens out of your deck in that case, and now you still cannot go with the Duchess's Informant, which generally is the preferred route with the spy that you create with Braathens, but again, need to settle for the Emissary. I mean, still a big play, don't get me wrong, but just not quite as big as it might have been otherwise. Now what we need to do is we need to ask ourselves, how greedy do we want to be? We can try to get as many assimilate units out there as possible and then start triggering all those, but we may not have time to make that happen. Our side in both rows could get completely filled in the meantime, so that may not be a risk that we're really able to take. I think perhaps what we go for in that case is let's try a Dandelion, and this is perhaps going to take a while, but, ooh, Syanna is very tempting, but yeah, let's do it. It's a risk. It is certainly a risk, but we'll try it here. We get the other Dandelion. And with that other Dandelion, we can play... Oh, man. We'll go with Assimilate. I was going to say, we have some nifty cards there that we could have done, like, say, playing Oneiromancy, now that we have... Well, we did have two of those already, right? But, yeah, oh, they're going to lock Syanna. Okay, well, that makes sense. I mean, we could go Oneiromancy into our other Cupbearer to remove that, or, say, Purify that. Would also be an option, because that's our only source of purification, would be to play the other Cupbearer in the range row. I'm assuming, yeah, we still have, yeah, okay, good. So, we protect you, or do we try to double up on Syanna? I mean, this is maybe a little bit greedier. I think based on how this came from a Fangs of the Empire, chances are you have multiple of these in your deck, so I think we probably do try to protect you. And let's go Oneiromancy. And where did the Cupbearer go? You're here. Gotta go in the range row. And use that to purify you. And we get our other double assimilate, so that's good. And do we have anything in particular that we want to hit with this? Not at the moment. I think we'll save it for now. Okay, see, yeah, here comes the other poison, so this is what I was expecting. They may have another one that they create here. No, okay, good, good. So, at least for now, we're fending off that poison. Now, we are out of purification, so we have no way of removing this. So if they have another source of poison, which they very well may, then this card could end up going down. But at least now, we have a lot of assimilate out there. So I think what we can do is we can say Artorius Vigo, and let's put you in maybe melee. And with you, let's go Mage Torturer. Because if we do this, then, oh, hold on. We can turn somebody into a spy. Who would we like that to be? Perhaps Braathens? That'd be pretty awesome. Use Coup de Grace on you. And then second Artorius Vigo, yeah, we'll put you in the range row. And make this, or we could perhaps make the other Braathens also a spy in case they have purification, or the Emissary to clog their side. Maybe we go a little bit with that, just to mix it up a little bit here. And we'll do this to boost one of our Vigos, make it a little bit harder to take that out. And okay. Hunting Pack, well, we certainly do have a status, so you can definitely summon the other one out of your deck, although, oh, right. There are more of them than usual. I forgot about that, but that does take up a ton of space. Just 4 strength cards, which is less than what you would normally be able to get from all of your assimilates, so for that reason, may not be a great thing. Okay, and so now, we could play our other Oneiromancy to get a Coup de Grace and use that to hit Braathens and go crazy with that. I feel like that might be the play here. Let's give it a try. So, there you are. Hit you. Create you. And, melee row? Shouldn't matter much. Then, okay, Duchess's Informant, I think, is a safe play here. And with it, we could actually Fangs of the Empire. Ooh. Hold on. To destroy your oh, but that Braathens had fail. I didn't see that. Okay, Duchess's Informant. Hold on, we have a second chance. You will actually poison you, I guess, and you will create a copy of you. No, we should have gone for the other poison. Duh. But, well, see, the thing is, neither of us have any space now, and we have a lead, so in some ways it's actually not a good idea to remove cards, as they're doing here, because now we can play cards, whereas they cannot. So we already have a lead, and we might even pass here. We have a lead, we have 1 card advantage. The only cards they can play are spies. Now, something like, say, an Emissary could be a card they play on our side that would still boost some of their units. It's not enough in and of itself. Most other spies, they give us some strength, but then involve them playing another card, which they wouldn't have room to actually play. And they may be now realizing that they made a bit of a mistake there. I think we pass here. Okay, and it will be an Emissary. Yep, that is just about the only thing they can play here. And they'll steal a Mage Infiltrator, but even with the Assimilates triggering there, it's not enough. So that means they will go 2 cards down, and they have not caught us. And for that reason, they forfeit. Okay, so go against Northern Realms here, and they'll go first. Okay, and they're going Shield Wall, and I do wonder what that means in terms of what they're going to set up here, because I would think the Kedwenny Revenants and Scouts would be the best option, but that isn't always something you do with Shield Walls. That's a little bit odd. But anyway, as for what we have here, Oneiromancy, that's fantastic. If we have one in our hand, then we can actually guarantee that we have Oneiromancy in every round, so that's amazing. Dandelion, certainly not bad. Joachim as well, also great. I think we can probably get rid of some of our weaker spying cards. Other Joachim, sure. Although we actually, yeah, this will steal cards from their deck, so that's fine, having two of them in our hand. And double assimilate, also great. Okay. Armor. And more armor. Sure. Putting shields on them? Not entirely sure why you're doing that, but okay. I think we lead off with our double assimilate here because that is the card that will be our biggest engine. And then once we get that down, we can start revving up that engine. So let's put you in the melee row, perhaps, and get our other one out there. And so now, once we do start playing our spies, which will play cards from their deck, these two cards will get pretty huge pretty quickly. Dandelion is dangerous. See what they get out of this. Another source of armor? And another Dandelion? Wow. Okay. More armor. What is their plan here? They've got an insane amount of armor. Is it living armor or something like that? I mean, I would think so with how much they have at the moment. Getting +2, 4, 6, 8. Pretty huge. But, let's see. As for what we want to do here, I think we actually want to... We could even turn Dandelion into a spy with you, and then use Oneiromancy to get Coup de Grace from our deck and make our own copy of Dandelion. It is tempting. I think that might not be a bad idea in order to get more of our assimilate cards out there before we start creating a bunch of new cards to trigger that assimilate. Give that a shot. And, well, of course we get one that has Purification next, but let's get rid of one of these shields instead, rather than, say, getting rid of the spying that we just applied. And that's another assimilate card, so that's not bad in that regard. Okay, War Elephant. Sure. Is a relatively big play, but I think we've got something a little bit bigger than that. Really? Is that War Elephant the reason why you wanted all the armor? That seems a little bit overkill, but I guess if you insist. Oh, the other thing is we have our own Dandelion, so we don't really need to do that, but we could, I suppose. Because we do, of course, have Oneiromancy, and it would create a new card to trigger Assimilate, so I guess. Sure. So we go this into... Could have also done this to get a Dandelion that way, but... Coup de Grace. Hit you. Get a Dandelion. Then from here, we could even play this Dandelion if we're really feeling like we want overkill, and that gives us, say, a Joachim de Wett. And another Dandelion. And another Joachim de Wett. I don't know how many cards we played this turn, but it is something of absolutely absurd. It was an Emissary. If I had time at the end of a turn, I actually would have turned that into a Duchess's Informant to create another copy of one of their bronze cards. So not quite as good as it could have been, but somebody count how many cards that was. That was insane. I think it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Could have been more if this had actually been a Duchess's Informant, but our turn was over, so we didn't have time to select. Okay, there comes the boost to the War Elephants. Sure. But I just don't think that's, comparatively speaking, going to be nearly enough. Especially when we've also started to flood your side of the board with a bunch of spies. And perhaps more of those incoming. Okay, Siege Tower. Are we gonna see like a bombardment later on? You definitely look like you're going with a siege deck here. Okay, so we are currently a card up, and we are still over 20 points ahead of them. Now, of course, this would be an early time to pass, but at the same time, these rounds tend to be a little bit shorter than in other seasonal events just because you tend to run out of space. But I think what we do here is maybe we go a little bit longer, and we either go Duchess's Informants, or we go Cantarella to completely crowd them out. Maybe we go Duchess's Informant because Cantarella is a little bit better, and we might not need Cantarella on this occasion. So let's go with you, and let's create a Siege Tower. And with that Siege Tower, you a soldier? I think you are. Oh, and okay, yes. Get a reinforced trebuchet as well. Sure. Confirmed, they do have more siege cards. Then again, they have so much armor, then I suppose this is probably not going to deal that much damage. And if anything, if it hits the Duchess's Informant, it might just give them more space. Okay. They're still playing here. They're going to banish, presumably, yeah, our biggest card. But even with that, not a huge deal. Because again, they're down a card and down 20 points, even after playing what was one of their best cards. As for what we want to do here, again, I think we probably try to keep it a little bit simple. Don't focus on playing any of our really big cards, because we hopefully don't need them at this stage. I think we've established that we have a strong enough lead. So maybe we just go with something like plain and simple, assimilate with Ducal Guard. And then we'll get an Emissary out of our deck and continue to flood their side of the board. And let's boost, I guess, our Ducal Guard. Yeah, and they'll pass. Okay, so that means we are going to win here on even cards. Perhaps could have been a little bit better if we were willing to take a bit of a chance and pass a little bit early, but so be it. Okay, and let's see here. So now we got some more powerful spies, namely Prince Villem, and we get round 2 of both Oneiromancy and Coup de Grace. That's fantastic. So I love those. Let's get rid of Emissary, maybe. We could probably get a better spy. Not you, though. Well, not that we're going to have much choice in the matter. So I think, again, what we're looking at here is we probably do want to play our assimilate cards first, and then we start playing our spies and stealing cards from our opponent and whatnot. So that means we'll get either you down first or you down first. Why don't we start with the Slave Hunter, because then on our next turn we can start doing the damage. And, well, unfortunately, Duchess's Informant does not have any bronze units to create a copy of, so that's actually just helping them, other than taking up some space, which could become a factor later on. Botchling, also, of course, not a bronze card, therefore not a card we could create a copy of. Nor is the second Botchling. Okay, and that will start to add up, that damage there. So I think in that case, we probably do want to start to get a little more aggressive, triggering the assimilates here. We would ideally get the Imperial Diviner out there next, but we may not be able to afford to do that unless, if we're willing to go with our leader ability, which could be a way to trigger things. So why don't we give that a try? Let's go Imperial Diviner, and purify you, not that it matters much. Get you down here, and sure, we might actually be able to create our own Botchling with Coup de Grace later on, but let's do this. And okay, I'm not really loving these cards here. We have 2 soldiers next to each other. I actually don't think we do, but long term, this may still be the best card, hence we're prioritizing damage or putting up points on our side. Let's go putting up points on our side. Yeah, I don't have enough soldiers to actually immediately trigger the crew, but that's fine. We'll just get the boost from the vitality. And you are swapping over. Ah, clever. That means that you lose the spying status. So we have missed our opportunity to hit you with the Coup de Grace, unfortunately, but I'm sure we'll find other ways to put that to use. Okay, and yep, you're getting more siege engines out there. And was trying to split our units a little bit between the melee and range row. That way, if they had something like a Geralt Fjorden, we're not completely decimated by that. But then again, of course, we know they have trebuchets, so to a certain extent, we should try to avoid the range row. But anyways, now that we do have one more assimilate card that we could play here. That's a little bit tempting. Then we can start doing things like Cantarella and Coup de Grace and Oneiromancy, Villem, to potentially start triggering more of those assimilates. So I guess we get you out now. And is there a particular card that we want to poison? We get our second Cupbearer out here. Can we actually take someone out with that poison? Potentially. I think because we saw the Lubberkin / Botchlings can use their order to switch things around and remove that status, we don't want it to be you. Let's instead hit, I guess, the battering ram? And we get the other one out here, and hit you. And there it is. I forgot that, well, because we play our other one from our deck, that actually turned out to be instantaneous poison removal. And yep, there you see it again, switching over between the Lubberkin and the Botchling. And more siege engines. Surprise, surprise. Okay, and tell you what, we actually could get Coup de Grace to trigger on the Botchling there, if we combine it with Slave Hunter, and that's pretty tempting. Now that we have our Assimilate units out there, I think that is perhaps the way we want to go now. So let's do this here. Does it matter which one we do it to? We'll just go with the one down here. And then we'll get the Death Blow to be the thing that gives us this Botchling. So put you... Oh, well, doesn't matter where, because they forfeit. Okay, so we'll go against Nilfgaard here, and we'll go first. And we have both Braathens in our hand, which is actually something that we may not want, because presumably when we play one Braathens, we'll get the other one to play out of our deck. So we might want to dump one of them. And then the Mage Infiltrators are not great. So I'm thinking we, get Artorius Vigo. That's great. Then Mage Infiltrator or Emissary. Let's dump one of you. Okay, and I mean, Assimilate is not terrible, but it is definitely still one of our weakest cards. Then maybe we dump you as well and get Joachim de Wett. Okay, that can work. And as for what we lead off with here, I think we probably do want to get our Assimilate units out there as soon as possible. So that means likely you. And get more out like this. Okay, and Imperial Enforcer's interesting. Going for the damage rather than the points here. I'll admit, I am surprised to see. Because in some ways, oh, well, I suppose if you can enslave, then that's one way to make it happen. But I was going to say, if you're removing cards on our side, in some occasions, that's actually going to help us, because we might run out of space. But let's play our other Assimilate unit here. And then get another Assimilate unit out of our deck, like so. And we'll leave it at that. And they're going Joachim de Wett, which is, of course, a big play. We'll see what they get out of it. They'll get a big card from us, actually. Well, Braathens, and then, yes, steal our Joachim de Wett. So that's painful. Because those are perhaps some of the cards that we were expecting to get. But we could potentially return the favor? Steal exactly the same cards if we do that. And then also, Duchess's Informant from Braathens, with which they will trigger some Assimilate here. Get some Assimilate units, presumably. And Usurper Officer in round 1 is not that big of play, but it's still a decent card, no less. Okay, well, there are all of the damaging orders coming from those Enforcers that I was questioning earlier. But, hey, they're able to get rid of a couple of our engines there. So, I think what we do now is either Braathens or Artorius Vigo. Either one has additional potential to trigger Assimilate numerous times. So I think, after we lost one of our Braathens in our deck. Oh no, we do still have a Braathens in our deck. No, they still Joachim de Wett from our deck. Okay. And they got their Braathens from their deck. So I think what we do in that case is perhaps we do play you now. And get the Duchess's Informant. And with our Duchess's Informant, we take more Assimilate, and then with you, we make another Duchess's Informant, with which we do more Assimilate. Okay, and it doesn't quite catch up to them. Their Imperial Forces perhaps being the difference maker here, but we do, of course, still have Joachim de Wett and or Artorius Vigo for some additional big plays. Okay. Coup de Grace against probably Joachim de Wett. With which they get Artorius Vigo, I swear. It feels like a mirror match. I mean, it's technically not identical decks, but pretty darn similar here. And of course, they'll use that to create additional assimilate cards. Those enforcers, they're adding up all that damage. So I think we go for Vigo and then Joachim, just to try to get more assimilate units out there. Then again, it seems like they're going to be able to pretty consistently destroy at least some of them. Let's go for this here. Try to split some of our assimilate cards more between the range and melee row. We have huge many in range, perhaps. Okay, so then, yeah, Duchess's Informant is perhaps ideal. And we get you out of this. And then we get our other Artorius Vigo, with which we will create another Duchess's Informant. And let's see, now you're going here. And the order in which these cards are getting played is a little bit confusing, but bear with us here as we continue to trigger all this stuff a bazillion times. And let's use our tactic just in case we do end up passing after this, because we're down one card, but we are at least now in the lead. And they're using their Duchess's Informant, presumably, yeah, to create another one of these. And they're stealing one of our Duchess's Informants. So we're going to start running out of space soon. But I think they have far more Duchess's Informants on their side than we do, which in some ways is a bit of a metric to see how you're doing, because these are basically useless cards for them on their side. They have 4 of them, whereas we only have 2, so that's useful. And we could certainly add to that list. Now, I would like to get Oneiromancy played here, because it is actually possible to have Oneiromancy in every single round. And so if we do that here, let's just think about what we'd like to get in return. I mean, double assimilate is pretty fantastic, but that's of course best at the beginning. So I'm thinking maybe Coup de Grace, which we do not currently have. Yeah, let's go for that. So actually what we do here is we Oneiromancy, and then with that Oneiromancy, we can either take another Oneiromancy, or we can just use our echoed copy of Oneiromancy in the next round to take this one. Let's go for this. Double up a bit, and then it's Coup de Grace, there you are. Did we? Oh, we didn't play Joachim de Wett yet, did we? We didn't. Oops, I assumed that we had when we had not. Well, we did still get several rounds of Assimilate to trigger there, and, well, our random card that we got out of our deck was Mage Infiltrator, and our turn had ended before I could actually target where that went, and of course it ended up going in the corner with a unit that had armor on it, so it did basically nothing, although it is continuing to crowd their side here. Both of us are pretty crowded at the moment, of course. But the big misplay was actually, I had assumed that we had Joachim de Wett out there, because saw the Joachim de Wetts flying around, but I'd forgotten that, no, that was all them. We hadn't played ours yet, and we were talking enough about it that perhaps I had convinced myself that we'd already done so. Okay, Turning Joust is not a big play. However, what it is it's a card that does not require you to play any units, which is actually somewhat significant. I think what we do here is we play another one of our spies, and Duchess's Informant is better than Emissary, yes, but I think we might save Duchess's Informant and maybe in Prince Villem and Joachim de Wett for future rounds as well, because we are looking at a lead right now, and I think with just a little bit more stuff, we can completely fill their side. So if we go Emissary here, and take your pick as to what we want to boost, let's maybe protect one of our Assimilate cards here, and we get another Emissary, and yes, this will completely clog their side of the field. And so with that, I mean, I guess we'll boost Artorius Vigo, because that's a Assimilate card that we want to make sure we protect. And that means we have not an insurmountable lead, but a lead, no less here, when they have no cards that they can fit in either their rows, so they pass. Does mean that we went one card down, but I think we'll take that for the round 1 victory. Okay, and here's the benefit of doing what we did in round 1. That being, we drew into the echoed copy of Coup de Grace and both Oneiromancies, so we have a ton of flexibility with what we play in round 3, because we are almost certainly going to drive past here, because our opponent has 1 card advantage. So Duchess's Informant is probably our weakest card here, and yeah, I mean, just looking at the other cards we could potentially get if we were to swap that out, I think it is worth trying to go a little bit better here. Mage Infiltrator is one of the cards that is not any better, and, well, nor is the second one, but we'll instantly pass, and that does mean we'll have another opportunity to try to get something bigger than this. Okay, they're going with their location, which is interesting, because it does have resilience, but on the other hand, in some ways that's not a good thing, because it's going to continue to take up space. Okay, you're switching cards around here. Oh, you swiped a Dandelion. That does hurt. It does kind of hurt. But that's going to take up a spot even in round 3, so it's going to be harder for them to play cards then, which in some ways does help us out. Okay, so we drew into the card they gave us, which is not a particularly good one, Emissary, and our double assimilate, so that's great. But the question here is, amongst these 3, which ones do we dump? And I think we probably do. If we have to keep one, focus on keeping one of the spies, because we do like to flood their side, and well, perhaps we have more spies than we have room to play at this point, so let's get rid of you, I think, and get another Duchess Informant, okay? Now they're going to go with their Nausicaa Sergeant, and get another Nausicaa Sergeant out there. And I think what we lead off with our turn here is we get our double assimilate down, because that is just such a strong engine for us to have. And I'm debating as to whether we're going to want to use double cross after that to try to get you boosted up early so that you're not as vulnerable, because that could be an intriguing option. Let's at least start with this, and we'll get the Cupbearer out, which is an interesting one, because we can poison if we play him in the melee row, and neither of these cards are cards that we care too much about poisoning, otherwise it's purification, that doesn't really do much either. So I guess we'll poison one of them. And I was hoping we'd get the other one of you out of our deck, but this is still an assimilate card, so perhaps we could still justify this. Otherwise, we could potentially get Syanna down there first, and then start doing things like Joachim de Wett and double that. Now, let's go for it. Yennefer's Invocation, oh man, is not great in this situation. Let's go with you, because that means we can play an additional card from your graveyard, which we are not going to have time to actually pick, and therefore it's going to be a bad card, put in a bad place, but it does mean one additional round of assimilate triggered. And we have to bear in mind that they can steal one of our cards with that Yennefer's Invocation, and that's concerning. I mean, this is probably going to get pretty big, and is going to be a pretty obvious target for that steal. Not much we can do to prevent that other than, say, get another one of her out, which we could do right now with an Oneiromancy. And I think that is almost certainly the play here, because we want to get them out as soon as possible to trigger that assimilate as many times as possible. So where did you go? Over here. Okay. Let's try to split you. One in the range, one in the melee row. And then we'll get Cantarella out here. Okay, that's fine. That means that we can steal a card from you. And Joachim de Wett. Okay. You have my interest. You certainly have my interest. Okay, here is Yennefer's Invocation. And not so surprisingly, they do use it on one of our double assimilate cards. I was going to say maybe if we played Syanna next turn, might be able to bait out the Invocation to get rid of her instead. Does mean that in theory she is safer now, so I think we probably do go that route here. And then follow that up with either a Joachim de Wett or potentially even a Dandelion using Oneiromancy to play him. But we'll have some options. As long as she stays alive, and well, it does help when we have 2 of her. And well, no! Coup de Grace! I forgot they had that. Does mean that they can create their own Syanna here, which, well, then again, is that the end of the world? I ask you, is that the end of the world after all? Perhaps not. Perhaps not. Because, sure, we were planning on using it on Joachim de Wett, yes, but maybe this is fine to take away their Syanna and find another way to set up Joachim de Wett. So we'll wait on that. And it looks like they're using the ability here to move a card from our graveyard to the top of our deck. It's going to be Braathens, and then maybe Cantarella after that to steal Braathens. Yeah, that's what it is. So it's clever. Braathens is, of course, quite good. And with him, do we have a second one that you could steal? Oh, our own Cantarella. Okay, that is not a good sight to see. Our other Cupbearer, which presumably is going to be something you use for poison. Don't know if you're going to have another source of that poison. That may not matter. but cards are gonna start to add up here. Now, you're gonna purify the poison that we put on you, which, of course, we didn't really expect to actually do anything about. But, okay, so now we have double Syanna. And with double Syanna, we're going to go with a bunch of Joachim de Wetts, is basically the idea. Unless, with Oneiromancy, we could go with Super Dandelion. It's also an option. We have a preference there. Let's see. Super Dandelion means we're playing more cards from our hands, which means we are flooding your side of the playing field more quickly. You're about to run out of space. I mean, either way, that probably works. I mean, that's going to be actually a bit of a problem for us because we have a bunch of spies that we might not have room for. But I think we'll go with Joachim de Wett here. So, go with this. And, well, of course, it's a card that we maybe didn't particularly want here, but then we get a bunch of cards, including Braathens, with which we can play you down here, and we get Dandelion. Okay, well, truth is, we didn't have to choose. In fact, we have nowhere near enough time to do all this stuff, so the game is just going to autopilot for us. But, yeah, I'd say, end of the day, that seemed to work reasonably well. Okay, they're going to go War Council to get something out of their deck, but they're running out of space here. What do they even do? They do have room for you. Just barely. And you'll get the second one out there. Now, like I was saying before, it's a card that you definitely want to get out there as early as possible, and we did do that with ours. Of course, the other one got destroyed. But that now means that your 2 rows are completely full, so all of our disloyal cards can no longer fit. So that means you're problematic, you're problematic, you're problematic. But we still have Oneiromancy and Royal Decree, with which we could get, I mean, if we have any non-disloyal cards in here, we do. Ooh, Coup de Grace in there with Oneiromancy. Could we make that happen? Yes, on Joachim de Wett, but then there's no room to play Joachim de Wett, so not really. Okay, I think in that case, if we go, did we lose our last Dandelion? We did. And by lose, I mean play him on our previous turn. So why don't we say Oneiromancy into, I think it needs to be one of our Assimilate cards here. Or tell you what we should have done, give this to anybody at all, really, except for that guy, because that's the one guy who can't actually get hit by it. I was going to say, what we should have done was actually go Royal Decree into Mage Torturer. That way we could have put a spying on somebody that we actually want to make a spy, someone that we'd actually have room to play on our side, like you. And they're out of space here, so they basically need to rely on stuff like emissaries to boost them. Yeah, we still have the Royal Decree, but the thing is we can't play Coup de Grace with Royal Decree, whereas we could have played Coup de Grace with Oneiromancy. So in that case, what do we even want with you, Royal Decree? I mean, or Assimilate, I guess. Do we have any reason to purify something on our side? Could potentially do it on a Cantarella, but I don't think that's really going to make a huge difference here. So let's actually play you. And yes, Slave Hunter maybe, just for the additional damage, is marginally better than anything else here. And here's more spies incoming. Again, shouldn't really matter much. I mean, these really would be the cards that we really want to get with a Coup de Grace. So again, that would have been preferable, given the time, if we had the time. But don't think it's going to make much of a difference here, because we are now both out of space. So we actually can't play anything at this point, but we have almost twice as many points as they do. So this is the advantage of having Tourney Jousts or any other special cards that don't require that you have room to play units. They can still get a little bit of value out of that, but it's certainly not going to be enough to make up for this humongous difference we see here. So in this case, I think we just start dumping cards. Nothing else to do there other than, say, apply a little bit of damage here. Now, biggest mistake we could make would be to actually remove one of their cards. We do not want to hit any of their 1 strength cards. Otherwise, suddenly they have room to play other units, and that's a game changer. So just make a point of hitting a card that is very much not going to get destroyed. And there you see. All they have left are units that they don't have any room to play, and, well, it's a similar story for us. And so this is going to be a very undramatic way of finishing this match, but we will take it by a pretty large amount at that. So there's a look at a Nilfgaard deck for the new Double Down seasonal event. If you liked the video, then make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, and leave a comment down below to let me know which other cards, archetypes, and factions you've been using that have been working out well for you in this new seasonal event. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time.